Welcome back to the Midweek Update. Hey Mepham, we're here in week 6 of the coronavirus shutdown.
This week, we're going to be seeing the impact that having first responder family members is having on some Mepham teachers.
And we're checking back in with Officer Montesano.
This and more as we take a look at what's going on this week on the Midweek Update. I'm Emily Yucht.
And I'm Riley Frieda, and welcome back to the Midweek Update, the B&B show that brings you closer to the people and places in and around the Mepham community.
A few weeks ago, we checked in with a Mepham High School graduate and police officer named Officer Montesano, who was recently diagnosed with COVID-19.
Now, B&B's Tom Mauro checks back in with him to see if anything has changed since then.
Last month, B&B got to introduce you to 2005 Mepham graduate and Nassau County police officer, Anthony Montesano.
The world being a first responder, so I started taking police exams, I think probably when I was 23, 24 years old. Probably 20, I would say like 23. I took every test in New York State that you could possibly take.
Shortly before we spoke with him, Officer Montesano was one of hundreds of officers diagnosed with COVID-19 and quarantined.
I work in a 2-man car, so I was like, you know what, with all this going on, if my immune system's a little bit down right now, if I have a cold, I don't want to go to work and get sick. I don't want to get my partner sick, so I'm going to take off work. I went to the doctor. I had very mild symptoms. I had a little slight cough, no fever, a little bit of sinus congestion. The doctor wasn't even going to initially test me, and I kind of told him how I have a lot of interaction through my job with people that are getting sick. And after that, he kind of pushed the issue and gave me a COVID-19 test, which like 4 or 5 days later came back positive.
As the virus raged across Long Island, first responders struggled to recover and get back to work.
Our police department, this again is as of last night, total positive in our police personnel, 145, 158 in quarantine, and 187 cleared and back to work. Again, the definition of grit and professionalism.
A week ago, Officer Montesano was one of those gritty professionals who returned to work. I got a chance to catch up with Officer Montesano on the phone. Now, first off, how are you feeling?
Feeling good, recovering, back to work.
What is it like now that you're back at work?
It's just making an adjustment to, kind of away from focusing more on the crime and more on the daily cases and the people that are suffering from COVID.
And what are you currently experiencing?
Just people kind of a lot of uncertainty in the communities and trying to deal with the virus and the quarantine and the social distancing. It's new and different for everybody.
And you mentioned earlier, towards the end of March when we had our first interview, you mentioned how you guys were actually responding to COVID-19 patients. Are you guys still doing that currently now?
Yeah, we're still doing that now, pretty regularly.
Welcome back to Officer Montesano and all first responders across the island, while continuing to come back and put themselves at risk to serve all of us. For B&B, I'm Tom Mauro.
Thanks, Tom. I'm glad we could check in on Officer Montesano again.
Yeah, that work the first responders are doing is really important during this time.
But sometimes we forget to think about how their dangerous jobs affect their families.
B&B's Lily Yepez spoke to some Mepham teachers who are related to first responders.
During this pandemic, first responders have been essential to saving as many lives as possible while putting themselves in danger to help others. But what many people don't think about is how this is affecting the members of their family. Some teachers right here in the Mepham community have first responders such as nurses, police officers, and paramedics in their families.
I actually come from a family of first responders. So my wife is a nurse. I have a brother who works for FDNY. I have another brother who's a cop. My father's a firefighter. My mother is a crossing guard.
So my eldest brother is a first responder. He's actually a paramedic.
He is a NYPD police officer.
The work that these first responders are doing is very important to the community under normal circumstances, but their necessity has greatly increased during this time.
Because of the city being hit so heavily with all the first responders, that's the police, the fire department, and the paramedics, so many of them have tested positive for COVID. So a lot of them are doing even more overtime than they normally do because they're kind of down a lot of first responders who tested positive.
Working now, they're doing a lot less procedures and they have to be a lot more careful in what they're doing with all of the PPEs and the ventilators that you keep hearing Cuomo talk about on the news. They have to have all their face coverings for every part that they see a patient, even if nobody's sick. They're getting swabbed and tested when they go into the building to see if they have COVID and all the rest of that.
Even though they are helping others during this pandemic, it is understandably difficult for their family members to see them do such a dangerous job.
And for somebody that has seen kind of everything and anything from September 11th to now COVID, he said that these are some of the craziest conditions because they don't have the manpower, they don't have the resources.
There are people within his precinct and even within his office that have been sick. And so that's always a fear of mine, that he's going to come home and he's going to bring home the virus to myself or our two young children.
Knowing that every single day that my brother is on the ambulance and every single call, I know that majority of his, 16 hours is going to be COVID, and just always, grilling him, are you following protocol? You're doing this, you're doing that. Do you have all the resources? How can we help?
It's a job that needs to be done, and it's a job that only certain people can do, and they kind of have to do it. I feel bad for all the ones who get stuck where they get transferred to COVID-only floors, and they're dealing with this all day, every day. All the doctor's offices, the emergency rooms, I can't imagine to see what those waiting rooms look like, but I mean, without healthcare and stuff, what do we do as a society?
Although it may be hard, these Mepham teachers and all other family members of first responders understand the importance of their loved ones' work. During this time, we should all be grateful for the essential workers and all the sacrifices they and their families have made to keep us safe.
My message would simply be, thank you. Thank you for everything that you're doing. We appreciate it, and we will be able to help you however we can. And to support you.
Thank you. They all do a job I don't think I could do. I mean, there's not a lot of people that can go into a medical office and deal with patients. There's not a lot of people that can run into a burning building. There's not a lot of people that can stop somebody and arrest them. But you should just be thankful for everything you have with these people and praise what they do.
From the bottom of my heart, I just want to say thank you so much for everything that you do to all the first responders. I know that you are putting your life on the line every single day, especially during this COVID-19 time. So thank you for going out every single day. Thank you for protecting us so that we can all stay at home with our families. So we love you and thank you.
From B&B, I've been Lily Yepez.
Thanks, Lily. We should all be thankful that the first responders and their families work so hard to help us.
Speaking of people who are doing a lot to help us during this time, B&B's Emily Yucht took a look at what U.S. health expert Deborah Birx is doing during this pandemic.
We extended the 15-day guidance for another 30 days to ensure that every American can stop the spread of this virus.
Deborah Birx is a name you'll recognize if you watch the news regularly, but despite their similar influence and positions, is not talked about in other forms of media as much as Fauci is. Deborah L. Birx, MD, is, as of 2014, the U.S. Global AIDS Coordinator and U.S. Special Representative for Global Health Diplomacy. According to the U.S. Department of State, her position entails aligning the U.S. government's diplomacy with foreign assistance programs that address global health challenges and accelerate progress towards achieving an AIDS-free generation, ending preventable child and maternal deaths, and preventing, detecting, and responding to infectious disease threats.
Yeah, we're really proud of the American people. It looks like across the United States, people are following the guidelines, decreasing their social interactions, staying 6 feet apart, washing their hands scrupulously, using hand sanitizer, and critically, not going to gatherings more than 10 people. And I think the American people should be proud of the work that they're doing.
Birx has dedicated her life and career to helping those suffering from virus and illness outbreaks, specifically AIDS and HIV. In 1985, she began her career researching potential vaccines for the HIV/AIDS virus on behalf of the Department of Defense as a military-trained clinician in immunology. She spearheaded the effort to end AIDS by leading one of the only vaccine trials to show success, and then by uniting military branches to support the research.
I think what was exciting to me is really a coalition around and a consensus around viral load and undetectability and the importance of that. And that came from both the advocate community, the scientific community, the program community. And I think it's been a long time since we've had complete consensus between all of the communities. And I think the advocates bringing up the importance of undetectable and the importance that is to every one of our programs has really been extraordinary.
After working for the U.S. military, she transferred to the CDC, where she continued to study the virus and overlooked work in almost every continent.
I just want to reflect for a moment on where we were, and I'm sure all of you recognize this. These were life expectancy curves. And what we were seeing in Africa in the 1990s, where I was privileged to work, is an amazing decline in life expectancy, and all of the countries hardest hit by the epidemic. And this had a huge economic consequences to that country. Teachers were dying, physicians were dying, nurses were dying. The very economic energy of the country and the fabric of societies were being threatened. And through PEPFAR and the Global Fund, we've actually seen a reversal of all of these declines in life expectancy. And so it's a very exciting time for all of us to be able to really finish the fight that we started those years ago.
She was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award from the African Society for Laboratory Medicine, and then in 2014, the highly prestigious William C. Watson Jr. Medal of Excellence by the CDC for her efforts to the AIDS-HIV response. As COVID-19 began to grow, the White House appointed her to the office of the Vice President as Coronavirus Response Coordinator to help in the government's response to the virus. In her time since the outbreak began, she has changed the way that people are being tested by making tests more reliable and accurate, more common, and more accurately recorded so that all information is correct. Having published over 220 peer-reviewed journals, authored nearly a dozen chapters in scientific publications, and developed and patented multiple vaccines, there is no doubt that she is the right person to be spearheading the United States coronavirus response. The American public can only thank her for her unbiased efforts to ensure our health and safety. From B&B News, I'm Emily Yucht.
Thanks, Emily. It's interesting to learn some more about some of the people working to end this pandemic.
Yes, but for now, we're still stuck inside. If you're looking for something to do, which let's be honest, we all are, you should tune into the B&B's live game show.
This Friday at 7, you can join us on our YouTube channel for an opportunity to have some fun and watch some of B&B's very own stars live.
And another B&B related opportunity is also here. If anyone wants to be featured in a future episode of Mano on the Screen, you can contact us for details.
So that's it for this week's Midweek Update. We'll be back next week with all new stories from in and around the BMCHSD to bring you inside the parts of the community we don't always get to see.
Until then, I'm Haley Hepworth.
And I'm Riley Freed, and we'll see you next midweek.